in some areas, just to kind of remind folks that when you're starting this, if you haven't already started it, you want to make a copy of this spreadsheet. You see all the tabs at the bottom. So you don't want to just do a copy paste. That's not going to help. All right. So you go File, make a copy, call it something other than copy of budget project. I'll just say example. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. I could leave it there, I guess. I'm going to make a copy. All right. Now you could toss the other one, the one that's linked. You don't have to access that anymore because you want something that you can edit. Right. This one does not have the budget project one, the link. You don't have editor permissions for that. So if you try to make changes on that, you're going to get an error message. So that's why we do File, make a copy. Right. And when you're done, you can create the share link and submit that to Brightspace. It's assuming I remember to put up a submission area. If not, I'll make sure I do that soon. All right. But to create the share link, you go to Share and then select under General Access. The default is private in some capacity. I forget I guess I could just look. It's restricted. That's the default. So you want to change it to anyone with the link and then change the viewer to editor. All right. So the only person that's going to get this file would be me. So you would create the share link, you copy the link, and this link is what you would submit to Brightspace. All right, I'll just show you real quick. If I just put it in the address bar, it brings up, I think I hit file, I changed the permissions on the wrong one. Classic me. Yeah, big dum-dum. All right, so in your file, let me get rid of this so I don't accidentally do it again. In your file, go to Share, change it from restricted to anyone with the link, change viewer to editor. All right, and then copy that link. You'll put that in Brightspace or whatever platform the college decides to use next. Blackboard, Google Class, Google Classroom, Apple Classroom, like whatever they decide to change it to. All right. I'm sure it'll go to the lowest bidder though. Anyway, once you have that set, you're at the point where you can, kind of start diving into it. You could submit the share link at any time, even if it's to a blank document, right? Or spreadsheet, I should say, right? Because once you have it in there, any changes that you make on your end, I'm going to see on my end, all right? So just so you don't have to worry about forgetting to do it down the line or forgetting this process, you could do it right away and be done with it, right? Then any changes you make in a spreadsheet, I get. The reason I want it on editor is because if I'm only set as viewer, I can't make comments, suggestions, tips, how to fix things. Sometimes I'll just go in there and fix it myself because, let's say, like I did before, I put a 13 in the calculator instead of the 12. If I notice that happened to you, then I could just go and fix it, make a comment, and notice a slight error. It's not a big deal. I just changed it. Right? Things like that. Right? So the assignment, click on that. It'll bring you to the assignment tab, just so you don't have to, because I find that it gets a little busy down here, scrolling through the tabs. There's a lot, so if you go to the table of contents, you can just click on the appropriate one. All right, and it'll bring you right to that tab. So the assignment, again, was to pretend that you just finished college. You're going to get a job, a place to live, and then basically complete the each tab of the spreadsheet, right? And then I put the little conditions. Some of them are meant to sort of be funny, but they're, it's the idea is that you're actually got to fix that typo at some point. Just do that there. Got to change it on the master file. Yeah, so you're not going to get an inheritance. You're not going to win the lottery, Even though we did a unit on probability, you probably could figure out that what your chances are of winning the lottery. That's not required here. All right, basic living expenses such as heating, electricity, food, and so on. Like I said, I'm just going to make up some fictitious data and just show you how it works. But you want to find the job title, description, and salary. So let's say you go to Indeed.com and you say you want to be a plumber. Plumber. And I don't know if I mentioned this. That's one of my life's biggest regret. I should have been a plumber. I think I have what it takes, and I've done some plumbing in the past, and I really like it. Maybe I could teach plumbing. Get a little best of both worlds. So you find a listing, something. Doesn't matter. Okay, this is a nice one. All right. Yeah, this is a pretty good one. So then you'd pull the salary. All right, so $90,243. Right, make a note of the job listing, and my recommendation is to do that in a comment. All right, so when I'm doing now I'm kind of doing this out of order. I'm starting with the job here, but here is annual fixed expenses, monthly, and so on. Loan repayment schedule, sources of income. All right, my full-time job, I think it was like $94,000, and that's an annual salary. So I'd select annually in the drop-down, and that'll tell me how much I would make per month. All right, and if I have a side gig, I could put that information in there, but these are not required. All right, you don't need to figure that out unless you have, like, if you really have, some aspirations, like, oh, I'm gonna do this as my day job, this is my night job, and I'm gonna invest some money in the stock, and you really want to personalize it, by all means. But this first one is the only one that I really require. All right, if you can get a link, that would be even better. I don't want you to have to apply on the company site, because then that happens. All right, so just some indication of what the job is. So what you can do, just do a quick copy paste, and as a comment, so right click or control click under comment, just pop that in there, and that's your justification. So now anytime I hover over it, I'm going to get the particulars of the job. So you will have satisfied that requirement. All you got to do is find a listing. It doesn't have to be a perfect listing, right? If it's something that gives you a general sense of what the salary would be, that's perfectly fine, right? I don't want you to have to go through the entire hiring process in order to know what the salary is going to be. So here you have pipe fitter, plumber, $25 to $45 an hour, right? So I don't have an hourly wage system set up yet, but $25 to $45 an hour, assuming an 8 to 10 hour day. So let's say $45 times, I'll go 8 hours. That would be $360 per day. So what I would do there, instead of figuring out the annual, I would say $360 and just put that down as a daily measure. And that'll compute what my monthly would be. All right. So, actually the part-time job is making more than the full-time job. That's probably, all right, let's rethink this. All right. But you get the idea. All right. So I'm going to wipe that out because I'm just going to go with the first job I saw. All right. I didn't want that. Oh yeah, I know what I got to do. Yeah, so if you check a drop down, it doesn't impact the final calculation, but you want to change it, just click in some other cell and then scroll over and then just hit delete and it'll wipe it out. All right, that's one thing that I don't particularly care for. And also, if you have trouble seeing what these things are, you could always expand. Just change the width of the column. Just click on these little partitions at the top. Otherwise, you get frustrated. It's like, I can't make it go, So semi-regular, let's go back to the beginning here. All right. Education necessary to assume the job title, salary. Now, a trade position, it can be a little trickier to figure that out because just because you may not need to go to college for certain jobs doesn't mean that you don't need some training, right? So whatever those training costs are, there are some obvious things like if you're going to go and become, I'll use teacher as an example, you need a master's degree. So you'd compute that, figure out what that is in terms of. But I put this link here for education necessary. Like, so it's the BLS.gov, Bureau of Labor Statistics, and they give you the median pay for certain jobs. So you could also use this as kind of like a way of making sure that your salary is kind of where it should be, right? But you can go down the list here, and it tells you in the first column, entry-level education, on-the-job training for the second column. And then what I think is probably the most beneficial is how many jobs there are going to be, all right? So let's say I want to get more of the options up here. Like, I guess I could hit next. Let's see. There was one that I found that was kind of extraordinary. Yeah. Computer science, computer programmers. That's what I wanted. All right. So for computer programmers, which is actually a pretty, tough area of interest, you would need a bachelor's degree. You don't need any on-the-job training, but the projected number of jobs, new jobs, is declining, right? And that's because of things like the Chat GPT, those artificial intelligences. They're not good at everything, but they're really good at writing code, right? So that's an area where just like learning a computer language, programming language, that's on the decline because it's not as necessary anymore, right? So you look through this, and so this is like the PSA. There's some stuff here where it's like I might want to stay away from that. Credit analysts, same thing. Computers can do that now. Credit counselors. Well, fun fact, people get themselves into debt fairly frequently. So you might find a job in that area. Right? So, all this stuff here. But then what you would do, and so I chose plumber. I got to get down to the P's here. And this is all a matter of public record. It's a government website. So it's as accurate as the government can ever be, I guess. Plumber. Oh, I needed to go one more. Petroleum engineer. Yeah, there you go. That's one. It's got to be in this one. Photographer is doing all right, it looks like. Plumbers. Always need a plumber. All right. So plumbers, pipe fitters, and steam fitters. Thousands of jobs available. All right. And the second one is projected growth rate is slower than average. That's okay because there's a lot of jobs out there. So the job growth rate won't start increasing until the market is really stabilized in terms of who is going to become a plumber, right? Because anytime you have more jobs than professionals to complete those jobs, then you're going to have a demand for those jobs. And it looks like all you need, I'll say all you need, is an apprenticeship. That's I know from friends and family that's not as easy as it might seem. But it looks like I don't need a loan for this, right? So unfortunately for this project, that's going to kind of be a problem, because in the loan repayment schedule, I need a mortgage, a car loan, and a student loan. All right. So I might choose a different job or find some way to justify that I would need a loan for this. All right. a student loan. Maybe you go to a trade school, and the trade school charges a tuition. So you could research that. I would say, though, if you find that you have trouble kind of fitting the pieces together, you're like, oh, I want to do this job for my project, but then you see something like this, high school apprenticeship, like there wouldn't be a student loan involved there. And by the way, that being said, in the real world context, this is great. Like you can make a fair amount of money and not have to be strapped down by student loans, right? So teachers for post-secondary, right? So post-secondary teachers, talking about after high school. So you need a doctoral or professional degree, so that's a lot of education. There's a demand for that because more people want to go and get higher degrees. But this is it's more of, I don't want to say a political thing, but it's sort of like if you increase the requirements that a person needs to have to get a job, then you increase the number of people that have to pursue those requirements to get said job. So when, like let's say 20 years ago, you wouldn't need a master's degree for something, and now you do, you're going to see a spike in people that are going for post-bachelor's degrees, like masters and doctorates, right? So that's something to be mindful of in terms of like the real world. But in terms of this project, you can do that because you can find a school that offers a doctoral program in post-secondary teacher, and then off you go, all right? I'm just going to go with the numbers that I used for the plumber, and I'm going to make an assumption on the student loan. But you also have to account for, and you can look in the average student debt, interest rates. You're going to have to account for interest rates, savings and investment, a place to live, that's sort of fun, and then living expenses. And I mentioned this last time, that you could just go here and you sort of build a budget, all right? So cost of living in New York, this is country, so let's start with United States. All right, so average in, I don't want Albuquerque. I mean, no offense to Albuquerqueans, but I don't live there, so let me get something more relevant to me. I'll just say that's New City. I'll just say New York. All right, well, X that out. And then you have estimates. All right, these are average prices. I mean, you don't have to build a grocery list, but this should give you some sense of how much things cost. All right, and then you could use that. This is probably the only part of the assignment where you could just kind of make stuff up, because I don't know. I mean, I like to have ravioli on Monday nights. I don't know why. I do taco Thursday. My leftover night is Wednesday because Sunday, Monday, too. You do some takeout here and there, some pizza on Friday. That's probably the only typical thing that I do. You can do what? Yeah, meal prep and stuff like that, yeah. So you could budget it out that way. So, determine how many meals you plan on having in a week, how much each meal costs, and then there you go. Good suggestion. And then we have to do the calculations, but I'm just going to dump some fake values in here. So life insurance, and these I mentioned last time, some of these are not necessary. You don't have to go, like I used the life insurance example before of like, if they tell you got to pay $500 a month, you're like, oh, dang it, this is not good. I don't want you to have to go down that road, but if you want to put a practical value in there, you can. I forget how much car registration is. I feel like it's $135 every 2 years, but not really sure. Something like that, right? I'll put life insurance. Let's say I'm relatively healthy. I did say this is fictitious. So. Home renter's insurance. Depends on the place. You find a listing for a house, it usually has some of the other things like property taxes. But home renter's insurance, you could just Google average price for homeowners insurance in Westchester County or something like that. So I want to say mine is like in the mid threes. So I'll just put $30 a month. I live in a condo. Vehicle insurance, again, is per month, right? So, oh, sorry, I got to fix this. This is annual expenses. So my life insurance would be per month 50. So that would be $600. We want it to come out to be equal to 50. Renter's insurance was, like I said, 360-ish. Vehicle insurance, how much do I pay per year? I want to say like $2,000. Biggest expenses usually have to do with insurance, which kind of sucks. Property taxes, I'll say $2,500. Live in a small condo, so that's typical. I mean, you go a couple miles down the road to Greenwich, and you'll find people who are paying $75,000 a year in property taxes. The reg, it was $135 every 2 years, so I'm going to split that in half. So that's going to be $67.50. Right. Then charitable contributions. I usually wait on this because I don't know how much I can contribute to a charity until after I figure out my own budget. If I have a few bucks left at the end, I'll see what I can do. But I'm not just going to say, okay, I plan on giving $1,000 away each month to, like this worthy charitable cause, which would be great. But I don't know that I have that yet. I want to see what my surplus is. Heating for the home, I mean, that could be devastating. But for me, that's a big fat goose egg. Not because I don't have to pay for heating, but because it's included in my homeowners association fees. All right, get to that in a second. All right, so monthly fixed expenses, we come back to this because we actually have to figure out how much these are going to be. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Monthly variable expenses, food and groceries. I don't know, it varies. I'll just say $1,000. This is monthly. Electricity, this time of year, it's not as bad. The lowest I've ever paid is like $200. The highest I've paid is $600, so I'll split the difference and call it $400. The heating, again, not worried about that because it's included in my homeowners association. But like if you're buying a house, you get estimated heating costs. Square footage, and you just Google it. Right? It's easy enough. Anything that you Google, it's totally fine to Google stuff. Right? If you want to get an approximation, what's the average price for electricity in Westchester County, things like that. Just again, put it in a comment. Not that. Comment and then just paste your link right in there. All right. Try to keep that simple. Like 400. Me, my wife, and my son. Water is included in the homeowners association, so is garbage and sewer. Cable TV, home internet, it's probably like another couple $100. It's ridiculous. Gas. I have a little Honda Civic. I usually do about like $50 a week, and so I'll do 200 on that. Oh wait, my wife has a Honda Pilot, so that's about $75 a week. So that's 300. So let's just jack that up to 500. Commuter cost. Well, the gas is the commuter cost.
We have to put
This is fine. These estimates are okay. For something like cable TV, home internet, I would research where you found that. Right? So you just say like whatever the average price is for Optimum, like whatever promotion they're offering. Maybe like the bundle for $135 or whatever. Just put that in there and then comment it with a link. But things like food and groceries, again, like you want to have a ballpark idea, but that's not something you need to verify. All right. So monthly variable expenses, $2,500. Semi, car maintenance. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, so just delete what I have there and just replace it with streaming and put your values in. Yeah, that's good. Car maintenance. Yeah, aside from the unforeseen stuff, you want to get like a oil change, tire rotation once every, like they say every 3 months, but I do it like once every 4 or 5 months. So I'll say semi-annually. Feeling lazy one particular year, I feel like it's around $75 at Valvoline. All right, but you could again research that. You could say Valvoline or Jiffy Lube, if that even still exists. Oil change. You might find a coupon too. I see those all the time. Cost. Of course, it's blocked. Oh, price list. It's going to be blocked too. All right, so. Oh, this I wanted to know. Okay. I mean, I've never done it, but if I'm supposed to, I should. Clothing. I generally wear the same stuff over and over again, so I could, in good conscience, say like $20 a month and leave it there. But I have a family, so I'll say like 150, and I'll say that that's quarterly. Movie theaters, streaming's good enough. Sporting events, go to some Ranger games and some Giants games every year, more than a few. Recreation, that is my recreation, dining out. We'll say, this is annually. This one doesn't matter, so I could just delete that anyway. Dining out, I figure we do it like once or twice a week, so $1.20. And I'll say that's weekly. Now I have these expenses. Sources of income I already took care of. And you see at the bottom you have that little one there. That little one represents the number of comments that I have on this page. All right? So that means that if I click in here and hover around, I should be able to find the comment. All right? The balance we're not ready for yet, but you can see it's actually populating it with data now. It says I have a balance of $4,000 every month. That's great, except I haven't accounted for my loans yet. All right, so go back to the loan part of it. Under monthly fixed expenses, we would have all this stuff, but we need to compute what those monthly payments are going to be. All right, so go to bankrate.com. It's a good resource. If it lets me click in, and you could get some interest rates here. All right, and it'll compute it for you, but your best bet is to use the material that we've been talking about. All right, was it Bankrate? I thought that site doesn't look familiar to me. I thought it was Bankrate. Yeah, Bankrate. What's going on? Why does it look crazy like that? I think I just clicked on a weird link. So let's start with the car. Okay, personal loan. Give you some interest rates that are available at different places. They're not very appealing looking. All right, but since you are talking about a car, you can go on to, like, if you're looking at a Honda or Ford or whatever, you can go on their website and see what they're offering in terms of interest rates. So Ford, I don't know if it's Ford.com, but Ford Motor Company. And every now and then in these little blurbs here, they'll show you some stuff. I thought I saw something about it being like a 2% interest rate or something like that. I saw a commercial last night, so go there. Oh, yeah. Oh, hello. Did not know that there was a tax credit involved. But yeah, you could kind of hunt around on here and look for deals, building price, and special offers. All right, gives you the price. I was looking at the Ford Maverick. It's like I want to get a pickup, but I don't want to get anything too crazy. So maybe I'll get this one, in my project. It had it. Retail offer, rate terms. I'm probably going to get a phone call from the local Ford dealership because of this now. But all right, so what I can do is I could take this price and use an interest rate that I found on Bankrate. All right, so I'll take the 24,190. All right, so go back here, 24,190, 8% interest. The monthly payment we'd figure out using NumWorks. All right. So let me bring that up. Oh, could it be any smaller? Jeez. All right. Well, I'll just kind of go back and forth because I want you to actually be able to see it. All right. So in my finance app, compound interest, I want to know what my, well, two things. I want to know what my monthly payment is going to be and the loan amount, actually how much I have to borrow. So I'm borrowing this, but I'm paying it back with interest. So that's what our loan amount is going to be, the amount paid back with interest. And by the way, when I do this example with the car loan, it's going to work exactly the same way with student loan and mortgage. Right? It's just you'd have to research different things. All right, so I'm looking for monthly payment. So I'm going to go down there. Typical repayment for a car loan is 36 months, anywhere from 36 months to 60 months. So 3, 4, or 5 years. Maybe I want to stretch it out, but remember what I said before, the biggest influencer on money is time. The more time you want, yeah, you might get a lower monthly payment. You will get a lower monthly payment, but you're going to end up paying more over the life of the loan. That being said, if you could only afford $150 and it's going to take a 6-year loan to do it, you're going to do that. You know, you're not going to get it. You're not going to have a choice. And also, for those of you who have not bought a car yet, the 24,190 that they list there is before they add on all the extra fees. So that 24,190 is probably going to be about $27,000 before it's all over. So that's and that's before you worry about interest rates on the loan. All right. So I'm going to say I'll split the difference and go with a 48-month loan. At whatever the prevailing interest rate was, it wasn't pretty. So I'd have to hunt around for a better rate. I think it was like in the 7s, something like that. It was like, oh, this is the weird website. Well, I see 5.2% interest here, so I'll just go with that. Instead of the 8% that I had before. I'll just say 5%. Just because when a dealership offers a car company offers a deal, they're not going to be like, come on in, we'll get you set up in a new car at 9% interest, right? They're offering you some kind of deal. So we'll assume that that's happening here also. All right, and so 5%. Present value of the loan is going to be the 24,190. Oops, 24,190. Future value is going to be 0 because we're going to kill the loan. All right, that's the end of the line. We got the upswing, investment, downswing, you're withdrawing from an annuity, or you're paying off a loan. Either way, the end result is that it will have $0 in the fund. All right, then confirm. So $557.08. All right, so $557.08. All right, now for the loan amount, what I'm going to do is take this number, this 557, and multiply it by the life of the loan. So I'm going to do, like I said, 48 months. So what I can do is I can extend this down. It won't let me. It should let me, though. Oh, I know what I did. I put a certain code in there. But you could overwrite it with the actual numbers. I just wanted to go down to 48 months, right, because that's what I selected. So what I'm going to do is take this number and multiply it by 48. So in this cell, I'm going to type equals. You could do it separately. You could do it in a separate calculator. But these spreadsheets, they are actually their own calculators. All right. So we're taking this number, so I'll have to edit that out later because that's really professional. So take this number. So I'm going to click on F4 and multiply it by the number of months, which is 48. All right. So it's actually not terrible. I mean, you don't want to hand somebody $2,000, but it's not the case of like a mortgage where you're buying a house that's valued at 200,000 and you're going to pay 400,000 off at the end of it. Time is the biggest influencer on interest earned or spent. All right, so this is only for 4 years, so you're not going to pay a ton in interest. Still, it's $2,000 that you'd like to have back, but it's not terrible. All right, so what we do here to come up with our payment schedule, and by the way, we have our monthly payment now, so $557.08, so we can go back in here and put that in. All right, so you just type that right in. But then my loan balance is going to start off with 26,739.84. All right, now payment one, all right, so payment one is going to deduct this value by 557. All right, so minus, oops, I got to get an equal sign. Anytime you want Excel or Google Sheets to do a computation for you, you always start it off with an equal sign. And I always forget to do that. So minus 557.08, and that's how much after you make your first payment the loan is worth, right? The total repaid, you will have only made the one monthly payment, so 557.08. All right, so this is how much you have left on the loan, and this is how much you've paid towards it. All right, this number is going to basically get multiplied by whatever this number is, and that'll, after 2 months, it's going to be 2 times this number. After 3 months, it's going to be 3 times that number, and so on. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this previous value and add to it 557.08. One thing that Excel does very nicely is if you set up a rule, it'll follow that rule. The problem is if you set it up incorrectly, it'll follow it incorrectly. But when I drag this little corner of the box down, it's adding 557 every single time, every time I have a change in row, all right? Because the row reference here is G8, it's calling on G8, but then when I get to this one, it's calling on G9, which is the previous value. So it's taking the previous value, in every case, it's taking the previous value and adding 557 to it. So following that trend, you could just drag that on down the line till you get to 48, and that'll get you to where, ideally you would have the same number that represents the loan amount. All right, so 26,739, 26,739. I will have paid off that at the end of the life of the loan. Right? Now for this one, I'm going to take what I have in G8. Could type in G8, or you could just click on G8. I'm sorry, F8. G8 was the last one. All right, this value here, I'm reducing it by 557.08 every month. All right, so this number here is 557.08 less than this number. And then drag it on down the line, it's reducing it down to 0. All right, so every step of the way, it's telling you how much is left on the loan and how much you'll have repaid. Now, in terms of setting up a monthly budget, annual budget, whatever, this doesn't really serve a purpose, but what it does do is it helps you figure out, all right, let's say in the case of a house, let's say I have a 30-year mortgage, but I want to refinance after 15 years. It'll tell you how much money you'll need to refinance after those 15 years. That's how much is left on the loan. All right? So same idea here. How much are you borrowing? For a student loan, it's like, yeah, just keep putting zeros, something like that. Nah, it's not that bad, but it's pretty crazy. So you do the same thing. Let's say it's 75,000. Interest rate is, let's say it's 3.5%. The monthly payment you get off of NumWorks, so the same way we did it before. So 75 with 3.5 interest. Over the life of the loan, the life of the loan is typically 10 years, so 120 payments. So you can assume that. Any of these values you could change it as long as it's within reason. If you want to pay it off over 20 years as opposed to 10 years, that's okay. 75,000 at 3.5, so 3.5. Present value again 75,000. Future value 0. And confirm. So it's going to be about $741.64 every month. $740, not that it's that big of a deal, but all right. And again, it's over. I set it up to go to 120 months, but you could change that if you want, depending on how you structure your loan, right? But it would be this number multiplied by 120. So you could do it as a simple computation, or you could say equals 120 times this number. So that's how much you're going to pay over the life of the loan. All right, so total repaid, first one. The second one we base off of the first one. So I take the first value, 741.64, and add to it 741.64. That gets me my second number. Now you might look at it and say, well, why would I do it that way? It's so you could drag it down the line and it'll do the computations for you. Right? That's the whole point behind doing it this way. If you want, you can go into your NumWorks calculator, in your home screen, go to calculation, and you could do 741.64 plus 741.64 and just do that 120 times. All right. Now, one thing you could, it does follow the trend here. So, yeah, you're going to do it 120 times, but you're going to just hit OK 120 times. Right? It's going to keep adding that 741.64. So you'll get all these numbers, and you'll finally get to the destination, but you need every one of these numbers along the way. So it's like, okay, I got to the 70, whatever it was, 74,000, I forget. I got there, but it's not about getting there. It's about getting each value along the way. All right. So the way we do that is by using this computation, K8, which is where that first 741.64 is, plus 741.64. When I drag it down a row, it's going to change K8 to K9 to K10 and so on. All right. So that's the benefit of doing it this way, because now all in one fell swoop, we get to where we need to go, which is 88. So I was off on the NumWorks, but about $89,000, all right, which is what we came up with over here. And again, for the loan balance, we start off with the 88, start off with equals 88,996.80. All right, that's our initial value. Oh, you actually don't need the, apologies, you don't need the equals for the first one because we're not doing a computation. The second one, I need the equals, where I take this number and subtract from it my monthly payment, $741.64. All right, it reduced that value by $741.64. When I drag it down the line, J8 becomes J9, J10, all the way up to J whatever, the 120th value. And it looks like might have been off by a little something there. The first one worked, but the second one, I think I dragged it weirdly. Let me just do it again. And then equals, oh, I did plus? I don't remember doing plus. Minus 741.6. I got about a minute left on this battery life. Once it hits 20, it goes to zero pretty quickly. Right, I subtracted. There's got to be something along the way where I just kind of messed up something, maybe in the numbers here, because this should match up. But it's only off by 741. Oh, you know what it is? It's fine. That's the last payment. In the 120th month, you're going to make one last payment of $741.64. All right, so that's fine. All right. Yeah, and then same thing for the mortgage. Research a mortgage price, and basically do the same thing. All right, so find a lodging. You know, you could use. I have a link. But you could go to like Trulia, Remax, like whatever. Best real estate. I did have it here. You know, you go there, you find one you like. But if you know something else, then go for it. I'll go Zillow. I'll say I want to live in Trenton. Nah, actually, that doesn't make sense. I did everything else based off New York. I'll say Hastings, New York. Find a listing. All right. Don't just buy property. Like if you see something less than like $50,000, that's probably just a lot. So I'll just grab this one, for example. All right. Take a share link. Get shareable link. I got my listing, and you can see they have stuff here like, like whether it's oil or, things like that. So you can research that stuff. It gives you more information if you scroll down. All right, just don't put any personal information, otherwise you're going to get phone calls. All right, so, but you could get an idea by square footage how much the heating is going to cost and things like that. All right, so then I would go in there with that information in my loan repayment or monthly fixed schedule. Either way, I would comment that that's the link for the property, and then do all the math based off of the list price with the numworks and all that stuff.
Do we use the estimated monthly payment they give us?
No, you're going to use numworks. Yeah, so you find the interest rate and then compute it using the numworks calculator. Just basically the same thing that I just did with the loans for the student loan and the car loan. You're going to do the same thing for the mortgage. All right, list price, interest rate that you researched, and then monthly payment, loan amount, and then just make the list. All right. So I think as far as stuff that I could type in, I kind of went through all the possibilities. I'll just put in for the loan repayment, 741.64, 741.64, and let's say I have I don't know, it's like, say it's $2,200. Like, let's say I did all the computations and it turned out that I'm paying $2,200 a month for the mortgage. All right. Then that would be what I was on the hook for in terms of those fixed expenses. This would be done. Imagine I just did this. Sources of income. Then you have your balance, $664.82. All right. Assuming everything else is as accurate as it could be, for your conclusion, you're just going to talk about the viability of your plan. Now, I would look at this and say, if I have $664.82 left over at the end of every month, maybe in the first couple of months, if something went wrong and the refrigerator crapped out, I might not have enough money for it. And bear in mind, we haven't talked about credit cards at all. Right? So there's no credit card debt involved. All right? This is what I would have as a surplus beyond everything I've accounted for. Now, if I can save that up over the course of like a couple of years, get a good savings account going, then things will start taking off. But if I buy a used car, for example, and it's got a bunch of miles on it, and I think I'm good with my 664 at the end of every month, and then the engine goes on that, then what? So unexpected, I would be a little cautious about anything less than 1,000 in terms of a balance, because life happens. And you could run out of medical bills, things like that. We didn't talk about health insurance at all. So all of that stuff could factor in. We would want to have as flush of an account as we can have. All right. So 664.82. When I'm writing my conclusion, I'd look at that and say, typo, paragraph. I would look at that and say, it's good. It's not a negative number. If this is a negative number, then you got to go back and think about your living expenses, right? But if it's positive, technically it's okay, just like expected value. But we want it to be as positive as it could be so we can invest that money.